Hey everybody, DJ Bobby Light here. We are taking a look at an intelligent jungle tune in the style of something you'd hear on Good Looking Records, LTJ Buckham, that type of stuff. So I want to start with the break here, and just the general approach that I took to this song was that everything is coming out of tal-sampler. So going with that old school method, you'd be surprised, or maybe not, how much those guys used samplers back in the day. Really, and it depends producer to producer, but a lot of the sound was actually coming out of samplers. Whether they were using sample CDs or sampling their own synths, a lot of that character came from there. So I tried to emulate that. Each track has a instance of tal-sampler, so I'm using that old school method. And then we talked about this too. tal-sampler has a really nice resampler section. So I think once you have all your sound sources coming out of here through that resampler, you get a nice sound. So starting with the break here, this is the classic hot pants break, which was used a lot in Intelligent Jungle. And I have two layers here in tal-sampler. First thing I did was get a 1-bar loop of the hot pants break, time stretched it to 165, and then I dropped it into tal-sampler. And if I go into layer A, you'll see I have a few different key mappings here. And each key is simply re-triggering the break from a different hit in there. And so once we go into the MIDI, you can see the pattern that I have here. We basically just rearrange it and do a nice 2-bar loop. And that's what we get. Now, what I also did was layered up an 808 kick to play with that C3 kick. So if I go to layer B here, you'll see I have an 808 loaded into there. And that is being triggered because we can have layers in here. So if I press C3, you can hear that 808, but if I turn it off, you lose some of that punch in the kick. So by layering with that 808, you get a little more beefiness to it. Then over on the resampler section, I set it to S1000 and mess with the values here. What I did is I dropped that sample rate way down, which will shave off some of the high end. You lose some of the sound, but it creates that classic sound. Drop the bits to 12, so simulating a 12-bit sample. Increase some hiss, some saturation, a little bit of a filter, and that's what we got. Then we're going on to this key loop here. And so this came from a sample CD called That Jungle Flavor. And you'll see in the old days, those sample CDs, a single track would have a bunch of samples on it, like you see on the waveform here. So you hone in on the sample you want. That was a nice little key loop right there. So I set up my loop point here, loop start, loop end, and I'm basically just repeating that little clip there. You can hear there's some nice vinyl noise on the sample itself, which helps add to the character. All of these, we're using the resampler and kind of dropping that sample rate, as I talked about, going down to 12 bits. But outside of that, there's nothing crazy on here. We are using the built-in reverb on tal-sampler. Just in that essence of kind of keeping everything in a sampler. So that's it right there. We have the key loop, the break. And then I'm going to bring in this 808 bass here. I had a video that I put up recently that talks about how to do these 808s in tal-sampler. Use the exact same method in that video, so be sure to go check that out. But this is what we get. Then if I remove the key loop, just listen to the break and the bass together. And what you'll see is there's a little bit of syncopation between the kicks and the break and when that bass plays, especially around the second half here, the second bar. You hear that? It's like do-do-do. And that just helps drive the song along, makes the bass sit well in there. So really spend some time trying to get that 808 to play off the break. Get it to syncopate with the kicks in there, and you can get a really nice groovy pattern. And a lot of these 808 bass patterns in this Intelligent Jungle song style kind of have like a waltzy type feel to it. and you get it grooving along there. And again, this is just an 808 kick sample that I chucked in here. So you want a nice 808 with a long tail. Then you chuck that in, and you get it in there with everything. Next thing I have is a little bit of a sax loop here. Or more like a sax stab that I have loaded in here. So I did a few things to it. I do have the volume dropped, and I have it panned in here and detuned a little bit as well. So if I go into the sample, so the sample itself has some delay and reverb built in, but I still enabled an additional delay in tal-sampler, and I have some EQ as well to boost around 2000 hertz on the frequency spectrum. A little bit of a filter, little bit of an amp envelope was messing with that. But these nice, like old school horn stabs from sampler CDs, they're just amazing. They fit in these types of songs so well. All right. Next thing we have is another sax lick here. And this one is more of a long form sax lick. So it was an entire take. I actually went on Fiverr and hired a guy to record this for a different song I was working on. But I came in here, really nice sax loop, and I chunked out a piece of it. You'll see I did a little bit of manipulation on here, so tuned it up. Again, we have our resampler, a little bit of a high-pass filter on there to try to chunk out some of that low end. Big delay on there, big reverb. I think in a lot of these tunes, you want to drench things in reverb and delay. It just helps create that atmosphere. It's a little cheesy, but it plays into the style so well. And this sax lick here is more of a separate take. So we would drop out that first sax stab and then bring this one in, and this is what you get. Really nice, really talented guy that I worked with to get that out. Next thing is you need some FX stabs in there. And so I added this guy in. We'll just solo this. Again, just building that atmosphere. And so this came from another sample pack. I dropped it in, messed with the resampler, high pass filter to cut out some of the low end. And this is also drenched in reverb. Really nice sample. Kind of sounds like a spaceship flying by or something. But you just kind of sprinkle these sound effects in as your tune's evolving. And again, helps build that atmosphere. Could probably definitely do some EQ in there, but you get the point. Next thing is you need some dreamy vocal stabs in there. So it also came from a sample pack. We have this nice vocal here. A little bit of a filter. Again, that resampler drenched in delay and reverb here. And that sounds like this. Just alone. That delay creates such a good atmosphere when you have a really long delay on there as well. Then finally, we have a high string. You need a high string. I also have a video on how to use strings to build emotion and tension. But a lot of these old school songs, when you listen to them, you'll hear that high string. And so this one I actually bounced down from the Korg Triton and recorded it myself. And then I created a little bit of a loop in here so I could hold out a long 8-bar loop in MIDI. So when you watch it play, you'll see it loops between those loop start and loop end. You can hear a little bit of a click in there. The loop point wasn't perfect, but once you drench shit in reverb and delay and you have all the elements in, sometimes you won't hear it. So my advice would be to not get all obsessive over, getting the perfect loop. You could, but at what benefit, right? And I think in tal-sampler, also this loop X mode, as you drag the loop points, it will try to snap to the zero crossings. I may be wrong, but that should help with it. Nonetheless, a little bit of resampler on there, big reverb, high pass filter on there, and that helps build that tension. Maybe if you want a part in the song where you take out the drums. And then you're cruising. So that's what I did here, folks. Going this route, that old school route, really trying to work in that workflow that they did back then, but in a DAW, I think can yield some great results. If I could have gone back and done this again, I would have used my instances of tal-sampler a little better, right? The concept of a sampler, right, is really a single patch like we're looking at now could have easily contained 5 or 6 different sounds, just mapped differently on the keyboard here. For the sake of modern convenience, I just created a new instance of it on multiple tracks, but you definitely could have consolidated things there. And then just very quick on the master, we have a limiter on there. This tune was pushing pretty goddamn hot, so I wanted to tame it, keep it below 0 dB, and then also using tape here from Softtube, and I did drive that input on there, just saturate it a little more, get it warm, and then that's what we get, guys. So have fun.